Hello, 안녕하세요. This is Soo Hyuk, Korean ambassador to the United States. I'm happy to greet all the friends of Korea and over 2.5 million Korean Americans whose resilience and hard work creates bridges between Korea and the United States. Today, Korea is blessed with a vibrant democracy and economic success. From K-pop to K-cinema to K-food, you all know better than I do. I wish to remind everyone that this success was made possible because of the service and the sacrifice of Korean War veterans. They deserve to be honored. No one could have imagined that Korea would become the 9th most influential country according to the US News and World Report. The current pandemic has shown the value of our alliance and friendship. The Korean government recently sent 2.5 million masks to the US, including the ones for the veterans. It is a small thank you for their sacrifices, and it represents the deep and lasting admiration and respect between our countries, and demonstrates the gratitude that the Korean people still have for our veterans after 70 years. In the 70 years since the start of the war, our alliance has grown to the benefit of both of our great countries. It includes economic cooperation and now public health as well. Our cultural people-to-people ties are growing stronger and stronger. I know that it will remain just as strong and just as vibrant in the coming years.
Hi, I'm Congressman Bera. As the chair of the Subcommittee on Asia and the Pacific and the co-chair of the Caucus for Korea and Korean Americans, it's my honor to celebrate this strong alliance between our two great nations. June 25th represents the 70th anniversary of the start of the Korean War. This was a tragic event that unfolded with the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives on both sides. But it was this friendship born of a true love of democracy, of freedom, and born in blood shared on the Korean Peninsula, protecting those values that both our great nations hold so dearly. I'm proud that 70 years later, we continue to have this very special relationship and special friendship. On this 70th anniversary, let's continue to show the rest of the world what democracy looks like, what friendship looks like, what peace looks like. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you to the Korean government for your support of the Korean War veterans here in the United States. Be kind, be well, and let's have a peaceful 21st century. Thank you.
One is what Koreans would say to me about the relationship with the United States. And it was oftentimes what Koreans would describe to me the relationship as one forged in blood. Not something we say too often about a relationship in the United States, but in Korean, it was one of the first phrases I learned. It was 혈맹 관계. Our relationship is forged in blood. As I went back to Korea again in the 1980s to work in the embassy, I saw South Korea really blossom and go from being a country, the country I first knew as a Peace Corps volunteer, which was one of the poorest countries in the world. And at that point, even in terms of its economic development, just barely surpassing where North Korea was at that point, to an economic powerhouse, which is, of course, how people think of it today. In the 1980s, to a democracy, which is robust and deeply implanted. And of course, going back as ambassador to a country that is known for so much more, whether it's incredible music and culture, or its creativity, and all across the innovation of arts and everywhere else. What we've also seen in recent days, as we've dealt with things like the pandemic of coronavirus 19 and inequality and our own democracy and human rights, we've seen in South Korea people who feel as passionately as I think we Americans do about it, and a country with which I think Americans share a lot of values we don't always live up to, but that we really aspire to. So the kind of relationship I think that Korea and the United States has developed is something that is no one would really have predicted, I think, 70 years ago in those dark days of the Korean War. But we look back and think, on some level, all of that sacrifice, if it helped to underpin this, it's something we can appreciate and be thankful for.
My name is Reid, and I'm a veteran of the Korean War, and I served right in the middle of the war. I was a machine gunner in the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division. We started the memorial for the reason that the Korean War was so important in terms of having the effort, made to have the United Nations members join in an effort to combat the aggression of the North Korea. And we felt that it was important not only to recognize the unity to wage this war, but to also win it and secure the peace for the prosperity and freedom of the Republic of Korea. And nothing pleases me more than realizing that I had a small part to play in the beautiful recovery of the Republic of Korea. And they're deserving of great attention for the reason that they were committed entirely to peace and freedom. I'd like to tell them it should inspire them. They should learn about it and how important it is in life, to have a noble idea, pursue it, and to assure that you're a part of something responsible in terms of your time on this planet.
This year, we are commemorating the 70th anniversary of the breakout of the Korean War. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Korea's greatest ally, the United States, for sacrificing 36,500 soldiers in the war and 15 other countries that came to fight for South Korea. My motherland is still divided into North and South, and I pray for the day of peaceful reunification. Thank you, and God bless you, everybody.
As you know, the Korean community is the 5th largest Asian ethnic group in the United States. As a sister city of San Francisco since 1975, and so many contributions have been made to California and to San Francisco. And in fact, in 1883, the first Korean visit to the West, a diplomatic mission, was here in San Francisco at the Palace Hotel. Looking forward to more opportunities to share each other's cultures, to share business opportunities, to share innovations, to share technology. It's not just about the business, as you know, though. It's about the cultural exchange. It's about the lifestyles, the teachings that happen over centuries of civilizations coming together. So looking forward to more things together with the Korean community. San Francisco would not be the same without the Korean community, and looking forward to more adventures together, and look forward to seeing you again.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jay Xu, Director and the CEO of the Asian Art Museum San Francisco and the Chomoli Center for Asian Art and Culture. As you know, this summer marks the 70th anniversary of the start of the Korean War. This was a defining conflict of the 20th century and one that forever linked Korea to the United States. It was a conflict whose fallout we cannot help but feel today. Over the years, I have enjoyed numerous trips to Korea on behalf of the Asian Art Museum and the Choi Center. But in many ways, it is the Korean American community that has helped me feel truly connected to Korean culture on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. This resilient community values exploration and tradition, but also innovation. These are values that allow the country of Korea and Koreans around the world to thrive, to build, to continue to create incredible and important art in the wake of a destructive war. The Asian Art Museum was the first museum in the United States to have a dedicated curator of Korean art. We have grown our collection and educational programs steadily over the years, thanks to the generosity and support of the Korean American community and the Korean government and the many friends in Korea. And I'd like to think these values of innovation and creativity are on display in our galleries, with ancient masterpieces in conversation with cutting-edge contemporary art. So, it is with humbleness that we commemorate this anniversary, but also a spirit of gratitude and hope for the future. Thank you.
70 years ago today, the Korean War began. Like most of you, I have heard many facts about this conflict. The 21 United Nations that assisted South Korea, the 90% of troops that came from the United States, and the millions of lives that were tragically lost. It's hard to comprehend that scale, and for those of us who've grown up in peacetime, it can all feel very distant and abstract. But the truth is that all Koreans have a personal connection to this conflict. In my case, I grew up hearing wartime stories from my grandparents. My father, who was a child, was badly injured when they had to move south to escape the fighting. Even though he suffered, it wasn't possible to get him proper medical treatment as long as the war was still raging. Thanks to the US and UN forces who helped to bring about the ceasefire, my father was able to get the treatment he needed in order to grow up, meet my mother, and eventually have me. Without the sacrifices made by so many, I'm quite certain I wouldn't be here to speak to you today. War is a destructive force, one that we are all acutely aware of now as we are engaged in a global battle with our vital enemy. During these times of uncertainty and loss, I'm grateful we can rely on the arts to provide us comfort and peace. For those of us who work as artists and musicians, this feels like a sacred duty. In each collaboration with our colleagues around the world, we strengthen our friendships and honor those who have sacrificed so that we can join together now in acts of creativity, beauty, and unity.
Hello, I'm Junyong Park, Consul General of the Republic of Korea in San Francisco. I'm very happy to have the messages commemorating the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War from the people who love Korea and the ROK-US alliance. Our allied relationship was legally established when the 1953 Mutual Defense Treaty took effect in 1954. But our two countries were already inseparably connected to each other when the US sent its troops in a large number to help my country at the initial stage of the Korean War in 1950. Even if the Korean War is often called a forgotten war in America, Koreans have never forgotten it and always remain thankful to all the Korean War veterans for their sacrifices to protect Koreans' life and freedom and their sovereignty as a nation. In this light, I have presented the Ambassador for Peace Medal to more than 300 Korean War veterans, traveling nearly 30 places in Northern California, Colorado, and Utah for the last 2 years. In addition, our council opened a Facebook page 2 years ago exclusively for the Korean War veterans so that the news, photos, and letters involving them can be posted in the website. Last year, our consulate hosted a musical concert in San Francisco Conservatory of Music, inviting the Korean War veterans as our main guests. This year, the COVID-19 pandemic disenables us from doing as much as we did in the past years, but we have been doing our best to remember and appreciate the Korean War veterans for what they did for Koreans 7 decades ago. We commemorated together with the Korean War Memorial Foundation the outbreak of the Korean War at the Korean War Memorial in Presidio Park, San Francisco. And some Korean American associations also joined us in commemorating the day with our consulate's support. This year, the Korean government shared the Korea-made face masks with the veterans as a token of Korean people's appreciation, in addition to its ongoing programs for them. I am absolutely confident that Korean War veterans' strong support have been ceaselessly contributing to the strengthening of the Korea-US allied relationship, which is mutually beneficial. While staying closely connected with them, our consulate started efforts last year to bring the U.S. veterans who have served in Korea after the Korean War back to their close connection with Korea. I'm sure my consulate and other Korean missions in the United States will step up their efforts for that purpose in the coming years. I sincerely appreciate from the bottom of my heart all the senders of the valuable messages and all the people, especially Korean Americans, who have been cooperating with me to get closely connected with the U.S. veterans who sacrificed or served for Korea and the Korea-US alliance. I really wish you stay healthy and strong against the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.